It's time now for On the Radar. We are back with Jeff Hull, Senior Financial Advisor at Manulife Wealth. On his radar, investing in sports. So you say the future of sports is looking really interesting when it comes to streaming, the new world of how we consume content. Let's start there.
Well, even as a consumer now, with all this tech overlay that's coming and all these deals that have come up, Amazon just signed a deal for 11 years with the NBA and the WNBA. Apple TV just signed a 5-year deal for the exclusive U.S. rights for F1 racing, as an example. So when you have these big streaming services with massive piggy banks, they can afford to cut big checks to get the broadcast rights for a lot of these different sports entities all across the spectrum of professional sports. But one of the interesting things with tech companies doing it is they can start to add technology influences to how the viewer experiences something, whether it's inside a NASCAR car. You can pick which car interior camera you want to watch. For baseball, it could be umpire cameras and different players. In hockey, they'll have cameras and be mic'd up, as an example. So there's all these things they can do in real time. So now the viewer, who many are now watching on laptops, can have a different experience with sports.
You can almost like customize how you want to watch things.
Exactly, because people have different levels of what they like to do when they're watching their favorite sport, as a fan or even as an investor, as an example. So having that open up to new technologies, then AI coming and all these other things that are happening is truly incredible. I'm going to take the experience for the viewer and fan to the next level.
So crazy. Something else you touched on that I'm really excited about is the NHL. NHL players allowed to go back to the Olympics this year. You're watching that as well.
Absolutely. After 8-year hiatus, now the NHL can now take some of their best players to truly compete on the world stage. And that helps the brand as well, whether you can get hockey around the world. Now you have viewers from all over the world that may not have hockey, as an example. For instance, China's not big on hockey, as an example. They'll have an exposure to that with the Olympics. But China's a great one to mention, too, because they had a hiatus for 5 years where they were not part of the NBA because of some friction with the U.S. government. Now they have preseason games, as an example, in China. And that's the second biggest market in the world for the NBA for basketball, is actually China, which is incredible.
What would you suggest investors kind of watch for if they're looking for different things to invest in when we're talking about, like NHL players going back to the Olympics, China with the NBA? What would you suggest for people? Well,
the best areas are always when you can get a company that's a bonus, as an example, with regards to sports. So a company like Amazon, who does, the biggest e-tailer in the world, they have Amazon Web Services, the biggest cloud service in the world, and they happen to have all these great sports franchises, as an example, for broadcast. That would be an interesting investment, as an example. On Apple, you have all their devices that are dominant in the world, and you get Apple TV with this new F1 deal, as an example. So those are more interesting, but the fan can actually buy some of their favorite teams, whether, MSG owns the New York Knicks and the New York Rangers hockey team, as an example. You can buy shares of the Atlanta Braves for people. And I'm not suggesting the teams necessarily, because I find those stocks to be a little bit muted. But overall, sports is an interesting industry. It's one of those escapes people have to enjoy, but it's also good for advertisers, because it's one of the few things that people tend to watch live. They must watch it live, like the Blue Jays yesterday and things. People want that. They want to watch it a day later because they're way too far back. They have FOMO, fear of missing out. They want their sports now, and that's great for advertisers.
I'm glad you mentioned the Blue Jays, because I realized we started this conversation about sports and didn't even mention the fact that the Jays won last night. A lot of Toronto fans maybe will angry with us about that, but I'm glad you got that in there. Just before we wrap up, you can't really talk about the future of sports without talking about sports betting, right? Like, that's a big part of where things are going. There's a lot of money in that as well. What are you watching for?
Yeah, absolutely. Those companies out there, I'm not necessarily endorsing them, but those companies like DraftKings and others, obviously betting, people have to be very careful. That is gambling. But again, with the technology tie-in to sports franchises, the broadcast rights, et cetera, being able to have that overlay of technology does allow sports betting to come into the factor that way. So it's almost like an ecosystem that's being built all the way around sports. So it's going to be very interesting. And it gives investors a lot of choice to see where on that spectrum that they want to be for investing in the future of sports.